So ask questions, make comments. How do you see this working out in your own thesis work, etc.? And how can we actually best support you as we move forward? Keep in mind, of course, that you'll have the BA students MA students working alongside you as well. They will be going through the same kinds of processes that you are, hopefully a step or two ahead of you, but if not, that's okay too. Learning together is fine. It certainly gives you a sounding board. Anyways, over to you guys. Any additional questions, comments, insights about your own work and how what we talked about in terms of methodology as well as lit review impinges on that work? Go for it, James.
I'm trying to absorb, and like Joel, my mind is also racing. But the idea of letting kind of some information kind of surface as you're going through your research, how does that jive with your lit review wanting to cover contrasting or comparing or conflicting points? If the research if some wheat is rising from the chaff through the research, why are you in a lit review proposing or presenting the opposite argument?
Yeah, kind of interesting. I'll take first stab and then you can go, Elizabeth. One of the things that happens inside the literature is that you will actually find that people will orient themselves in particular ways. So if I take a look at science education, for instance, my background, you will find there are a lot of people who are particularly with technology, they'll say, well, we can do an experiment. We can actually compare this classroom that doesn't use digital technology with this classroom that does use digital technology. And our comparisons will be valid because they're experimental. We are deliberately modifying the situation with these digital folk that isn't done with these other folk. The problem is that if you take a look at the literature that is done from that perspective, most of the time you'll end up with the same result. That is, no significant difference between the two populations. That's because, at least in my view, and there's been a whole pile of work that's done on NSD, no significant difference, that there are so many things going on in both of those classrooms that you're not really comparing the two classrooms to each other, even though that's what you've decided to focus on. So the literature does this all the time. And what you need to do is go through that literature, seeing what it's actually saying, and then let it speak to the data that you are collecting itself, which is going to be very localized, very incidental, that is not going to be generalized across the entire population or for the entire universe for all time, amen, that kind of thing. It's just not going to happen. So what you need to do is say, this is valid for my particular population because this, and give a reason for it. Now that reason is going to be hypothetical. It's a hypothesis as to why you think that those two things are related to each other. But then you're actually looking for the data to say whether that's true or not, right? So it's true from the perspective that it agrees with it or it doesn't agree with it. And then you've got to have a philosophical thinking about, well, so what does that mean? And that's where you come to your conclusions, or you come to your discussion piece and talk about how is this related or not related to the findings that we've actually talked about in your literature review, etc. So it's a sort of an iterative process, even having the data speaking to the literature and the literature speaking to the data, etc., going back and forth. I don't know if that was clear. Hopefully it was helpful.
Yeah, the idea of the hypothesis being the initial point of reference for the kind of comparing makes a lot of sense, and then after that, through the data that emerges, the hypothesis is either, well, it can't be proven, but it's either strongly disproved or not. But I get it now.
Okay. The other piece to keep in mind is that when you're actually looking for, and I'm specifically talking about grounded theory here, when you're looking for things to actually emerge from the wheat rising from the chaff was the metaphor that you're using. The important thing is that it can't be just one person who's actually seeing the wheat rising from the chaff. So there needs to be this opportunity for it to be much more specific than that as we move forward. In other words, I'm talking about triangulation. You can't have one person seeing it and nobody else looking at the same data doesn't see it at all. That doesn't work. So what you need to actually do is have multiple sources of data that are saying the same thing. And then you're seeing the same idea, the same wheat arising from all of those multiple sources of data. That's why you're looking at more than one individual. Now, we're not going to be looking for populations in the hundreds or even in the tens. You're looking probably in the neighborhood of 2 to 4 to 5, depending on your kind of research, etc. So keep in mind that whoever you choose is not necessarily going to be representative of a larger population. That's why we talk about case studies. So in this particular situation, with these particular people, we found this. And that agrees or doesn't agree with the previous literature for these reasons.
Sorry, I was the one playing with the pods. So I put up a note pod saying that basically same time, same place next week. And we're going to talk about the theoretical framework. And I put a link to Francois' YouTube on theoretical framework. And now I can't find the notes because there's so many note pods in here and I didn't title it. Sorry. So I will put it in our Blackboard course in an announcement so that you have the link for the theoretical framework.